You know, I think this kit is the main reason why the Force Impulse Spec 2 was retail, because it won't look as good for such a momentous kit to be number 39, would it? Complete respect from me for C Freedom to take the fall of being filler just so this guy can look good on the packaging. Press F. What is going on, guys? MJ2005 Gundam here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the real grade RX-78-2 Gundam 2.0 from the original Gundam series. A cutting-edge Federation mobile suit that is developed as part of the V project. It was revitalized in real grade form with the use of 14 years of engineering advancements, making this kit as cutting-edge as the actual units in the early one-year war. From opening the box, you'll be greeted with a total of 10 runners and a moderately sized foil decal sheet. And just to put it into perspective, the original real grade was also made up of 10 runners, but since one of the 2.0 runners is a set of beams, it's technically only made up of 9. That gets even more unbelievable when the build is considered, since it took me 2.5 hours just to build the frame alone, demonstrating the build that is characterized by highly intricate part separation, including the heavy reliance on small parts, generous use of undergates, and a new turning joint construction that requires precise insertion of the joint bends. Despite that though, every separate part on this kit feels natural and necessary, making the build feels 10 times smoother than the original despite it being 10 times more intricate. No punches have been pulled in order to make this kit as good as it could be, so naturally this is not a kit I would recommend starting the hobby with or building while you're not at your best, as you really need to know what you're doing. It's an intermediate build to be sure, but one that feels enjoyable throughout. One thing to note though is how Bandai actually made 2 versions of the manual for if you want to build it as standard, or start by assembling the frame first before you attach the armor. Naturally, only the standard one is included in the kit, but I'll pop up the QR code and the link to the technical manual in the description below for you to check out. Starting off with the inner frame, and I am astounded by how it turned out. It looks very much like a simplified mix between phases 2 and 3 of the Perfect Grade Unleashed Gundam's inner frame, but just shrunken down into 1 to 1/44th scale. Similarities aside, it is still rather breathtaking how such detail has been implemented into a 12.5cm inner frame. The sculpted details like the vents, thrusters, and grates feel properly mechanical, the attachment points for the armor look naturally integrated, and the struts and supports of the semi-monocoque layouts as well as the core fighter add some extra definition and color to spruce up the visuals of the bare frame. Not to mention how Bandai even bothered to make the frame itself two-toned, and how the eyes and cameras were properly separated with parts like the Freedom GCP and Gundam Epion. I'm not a guy for leaving a build half finished, but for those of you who love your inner frames, I would argue that the build can be left where it is. With the armor assembled, and this is where my opinions for the 2.0 start to get mixed, albeit for subjective reasons. The design is just way too robust for my liking, especially around the legs. The massive yellow frames on the chest vents aren't for me, and the head gives me that puffy, real grade Freedom GCP vibes. Subjective thoughts aside, the visuals and engineering of this kit aren't to be denied, as apart from possessing a distinct two-tone white, the rich amounts of surface detail and perforations in the armor allow the frame to poke through, giving the 2.0 a very mechanical aesthetic, almost like a mini Perfect Grade. The hefty armor design and brighter colors also enhance the profile and vibrancy, adding to its shelf presence and display value, with the lack of blemishes like seam lines and nut marks providing a perfectly clean result. Speaking of which, while this is a build I would be happy to leave as is, decals are provided for a more realistic touch and enhancing the eyes and head sensors. Though it is interesting that apart from the standard metallic decals, they also provided ones with lens textures to take the realism to 11, which is a pretty neat option. That being said, the redesign and the highly mechanical details will not be to everyone's taste, especially classic purists. And that, I think, is the only confounding variable that can potentially hold your liking back. Otherwise, the visuals are absolutely astounding in a vacuum, with the engineering to back up the 14-year advancement. Articulation-wise, the head is on 2 hinges and a ball joint, which gives it the utmost range coupled with the simplistic collar design. The shoulders are on an extendable butterfly joint that is somewhat hard to access, while the shoulder armor can be tucked up and raised to make way for the arm to call the teacher with the clavicle and arm joints. The arms can also rotate, while the movable shoulder panels can make way for the arm to rotate independently of the shoulder armor. There's a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, ball jointed wrist cuffs, and ball jointed wrists. The torso can crunch forward on 2 points, while the waist provides some side-to-side crunching and a full rotation. All the skirts can move, while the legs can drop down for some pelvic thrusting, while the front skirt assembly can unlock a mechanism for the legs to tip forwards, allowing for full splits towards every direction at maximum. There is a thigh swivel, triple jointed knees with insane armor separation, movable ankle armor, an opening rear shin panel to make way for the front to back feet movement, and the double jointed ankle tilts. The feet also have segmented toes and insane flip-flop action. Finally, the beam saber holsters and backpack thrusters can move. Altogether, the articulation of the 2.0 Granddaddy is absolutely fantastic, thanks to the various mechanisms that maximizes its range of movement. It also feels so solid to pose, it almost feels like an action figure. But it's worth noting that the shoulder flaps aren't the sturdiest in the world, and crunching the torso back incorrectly would cause the kit to bifurcate, as it is mostly held together by a rear buckle. Minor points to pay attention to, but absolutely enjoyable posing experience overall. In terms of accessories, the 2.0 comes with a pair of fists, holding an open hand and a right trigger finger hand, all of which are fixed options. Weapons start with the beam sabers on the backpack, which can be unplugged and slipped into the holding hands for use with the SB13 beams with no weight issues attached. Next up is the classic beam rifle, which features a moving scope and foregrip with 2 movable axes. And for use, the trigger finger hand needs to be completely reassembled around the handle, with a groove, tightly wrapped fingers, and the hand cover providing multiple points of locking to make sure the rifle stays in the hand, which is quite a bit of a faff to set up. Otherwise, it's a fairly standard rifle that can be stored on the flip-out section of the back skirt when not in use. A similar case can be made for the Hyper Bazooka, except it features a movable handle and extendable barrel. It can be used in the standard holding hands, and the equipment process is largely the same as that of the rifle, except without any palm fixation mechanisms. Even then, the grip is really secure, and thanks to the movable saber holsters, the stock will have little to clash with when setting up poses. The bazooka can also plug into the basket for storage. Lastly, there's the shield, which features an adjustable mount and bracket piece. As standard, the bracket wraps around and slides into the arm for very solid equipment. Though by folding up and locking the square handle into place, the shield can be solidly slid into the holding hands for the Gundam to use it with the handle alone. When not in use, the shield can be slid onto the backpack for solid storage. And on a similar note, the beam sabers and beam rifle can be stored under the shield with the integrated mounts, allowing the Gundam to carry spare weapons without worrying about weight issues this time. Additional gimmicks start with the opening cockpit hatch, designed to open up on 2 sections, though there isn't a pilot figure included to accompany that feature. And as you would expect, the core fighter is also detachable. From undoing the unicorn Gundam-like buckle behind the abs, the top and bottom halves can come apart to pull out the core block, then unfold and rearrange the canopy and wings, and attach the separate landing gear to display the core fighter separately. Granted, the visual differences between this and the original one are slight, but it's still quite a nice display piece with an opening canopy nonetheless. Unfortunately, there's no structural substitute for it, so the Gundam will be in bits if you want to display the fighter separately, unless you're really careful. Moreover, there are ports in the basket and backpack for use with action bases, depending on whether the former is blocked up by weapon storage. But an undocumented feature is the backpack attachment, as this does in fact use the standard high-grade double peg connections. So if you want to throw on a ridiculous backpack onto the 2.0 Granddaddy or vice versa, you're more than able to do so. From the real grade Freedom Gundam GCP showing us a taste of what a remade real grade could be like, Bandai literally pulled out all the stops when celebrating the 45th anniversary of the franchise, as well as the 40th real grade kit in the line with the real grade RX-78-2 Gundam 2.0. And while on a subjective level I don't like everything about it, I cannot deny that it lives up to the hype. It is by far the best looking of the 1:144th scale Granddaddies, one of the most flexible real grades rivaling the likes of the God and Nepion, and on top of doing away with all the issues the 1.0 had, it is also sturdy enough to be posed like an action figure without any worry thanks to the strong inner frame that can also act as a secondary display piece, so long as you get to know its mechanisms. That goes for the build as well, as despite its lower runner count, it is highly technical, but not to the point where it becomes tedious. It's definitely not an entry-level real grade, but what resulted of it is one of, if not the most enjoyable versions of the Granddaddy within the scale, if not of all Gunpla incarnations. That being said, the one confounding variable is whether you like the PG Unleashed aesthetics, but it's no hyperbole that the real grade Granddaddy Gundam 2.0 gets really close to being a mini perfect grade, and its merits strongly outshine my partiality against the design. What's definitely irrefutable is that this kit is a great experience through and through, worthy of carrying the celebration of the franchise into the future. And that's all for me. Thank you for watching, drop a like and comment if you did enjoy the video, subscribe for more content like this, and feel free to follow me on social media with the links down below. That said, take it easy, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out guys, bye bye.